Andy, just to kind of just confirm
Yeah.
how long you want me to talk for to start with now?
Yeah, so it's gonna be about 20 to 25 minutes.
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So hello everyone. Welcome to week 2 of our event. Thank you for being involved being today. The start for the tourism hospitality event. The team is composed by Sad, Antia, and myself, Andy. The Arena Festival will take place every Wednesday of October at 5 p.m. each week, focusing on different topics. Last week, we was talking about the tourism industry in useful talk. If you miss it or you want to listen again, we have uploaded this talk into our YouTube channel. Next week, we will be on event, and the last week we're gonna be focused on a student and new graduate perspective in the industry. This week we are discussing hospitality, and we have 2 guest speakers presenting. Thank you both to being here. First of all, we have Professor Grahame Macdonald. Grahame is a lecturer of Anglia Ruskin University, owner of Vanellis Inn, which have a total of 5 successful community focusing on path. On top of that, he has been associated to lectures at the Open University and has a master's degree in human resources development from University of Leicester. Thank you so much for being here, Grahame.
Fine, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. I'd love to say that I am a professor, and I know professor is a kind of all-encompassing term for lecturers, particularly in other parts of the world. I'm not quite at professor level yet. I think Nicola might get there before me, but you know, from the point of view of being a higher education teacher, I am classed as that, I guess. So, but thank you for the introduction.
Okay, thank you so much.
That's all right.
Yes.
Firstly, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation. My life is ruled by PowerPoint, so it's actually quite nice not to be constrained by a PowerPoint. So I'm going to just talk for the next 20 or so minutes. But please do tell me to be quiet when you want me to be quiet, because otherwise I might ramble. I'll start off by introducing myself in a bit more detail, and then I'll talk about my kind of unusual role at Anglia Ruskin, and then I'll talk a bit about COVID and the industry without trying to replicate what Gina has to say, because actually her industry background and mine are actually quite similar. So I'm sure we'll complement each other nicely. So yes, my career in hospital. Well, I guess I ought to start by saying it's very difficult to actually clarify what we mean by hospitality, because really it's woven into all aspects of tourism, travel, and events. You know, if I'm teaching about hospitality, then if we boil it down to the nuts and bolts, it's really about the host-guest relationship, and that's something that's implicit within everything we do in travel and tourism and events. So it's quite difficult to extract it from the other parts of that bigger industry. However, in kind of common parlance, I suppose we talk about hospitality, we mean food, beverage, and accommodation. So we'll use that industry-wide definition as a starting point. And my initiation into the industry happened many years ago. I won't say how many because I don't want to tell you how old I am, but quite a few years ago, when I studied a degree in hospitality management, which was actually through Anglia Ruskin University, but it wasn't called Anglia Ruskin University then. It was called Anglia Polytechnic University. I did that, and it was a 4-year degree. And I think that's quite important to just touch on that, because I did a year's placement at what was then a regional tourist board. It was called East Anglia Tourist Board, which the regional tourist boards are disbanded now, but it was a real good insight into the world of tourism, and particularly marketing, which then led me to do not only to do the degree at Anglia Ruskin, but to do the professional diploma in marketing with the Chartered Institutes of Marketing. And I think I just want to say, with my academic hat on, I want to say a little bit about doing other stuff other than your degree, because as I'm sure you're all aware, when you go into the workplace and you're in an interview situation, then the majority of people going for the same kind of level of job that you're going for will have a degree. Not like in my day, where actually, and even maybe before that, where it was unusual for people in hospitality and travel and tourism to have degrees. Now, in most cases, people do. So it's really important that you try and take advantage of every opportunity that you can to add strings to your bow, to embellish your curriculum vitae, to embellish your experiences so that you can really talk about what you've done, because I'm an employer as well as a teacher, and that's what I want to know about. You know, I want to know how well you did on your degree. Of course I do, but I want to know what else you've done as well. So I think one thing I would say is that really helped me, A, doing the placement year, and B, doing the additional qualification. I know you're all level 6, so you haven't got that placement opportunity now, but it doesn't mean that you can't do other things. This is a really good thing that you're doing here. I think this is a really good, they're so well organized, these events, and I'm really impressed. And it's really something that you can talk about when you go to interview and impress the interviewers with those additional employability skills. Anyway, enough of that. Then I worked in hotels in and around Norfolk, where I currently live, for a while. But really missed the academic side of things, and thought, actually, I like walking the walk, but I also like talking the talk. So I would really like to teach at further or higher education. So I went and got a teaching qualification as well. Ended up in colleges in and around various parts of Britain, becoming head of travel and tourism at Lincoln College, where I met my wife, and we decided that we'd had enough of education. So we went back into hospitality, started up our business, which is, as you say, Vanilla Sins, and have had that business for a number of years alongside working in higher education and, as you know, working at Anglia Ruskin. And so I think, as I said, that really underpins the notion that you know, when you start out in a career, don't be frightened about taking different roads and trying different things as you go along, because it does, no experience is a bad experience. It might feel like that at the time. You know, there were times when I was working in hotels in and around Norfolk that I wondered why I was doing that, but actually in retrospect it served as excellent experience for running my own business. Some of the things that I do now, I draw on my experiences from many years ago to help me through and help me make decisions. So no experience is a bad experience. All experiences are good, and will stand you in good stead. So yes, I now run Vanilla Sins, and you're right. At one point, we did have 5 pubs. We don't have 5 at the moment. I was going to say we just have 2, but 2 is more than enough, particularly in the current climate. We went through a period where we were taking on pubs and managing them for other people, and that was fine. But there are a number of challenges involved with that, which are too numerous to go through today. So we have what could be termed a food-led pub, which is on the outskirts of Norwich, and then we have an 11-bedroom coaching inn, which is very similar, I think, to what Gina is running, and that has 11 letting bedrooms, just north of Ipswich. That's the location that I'll define it by. And moving into the kind of second part of the discussion, the COVID pandemic has really ripped through the hospitality industry. I can't think, I'm sure Gina would agree, I can't think of an industry that has been more impacted than hospitality. I'm sure there are some that would argue they've been equally impacted, but I can't think of one that's been more impacted, and really has had the stuffing knocked out of it over the last 18 months. And I'd like to say it's over, but it's not. COVID is not over, and we've got to get through another winter with all the kind of repercussions that are there for us with regard to the flu virus and other aspects. So we're not out of the woods yet. We're kind of better than we were. But having to close your business for months on end is never a good thing to do, particularly when it's a small business and you're self-employed. And obviously our circumstances were slightly different in that I have another income, but for all those people that have been relying on their business, it's been pretty horrific. I think what's really made it particularly challenging is there was no plan. There's a report that's just come out criticising the UK government for the way it handled the crisis, and I think, don't think any government has handled it that well. I mentioned that in a class yesterday, and someone said, "Well, New Zealand has," but I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think if retrospect and hindsight are wonderful things, and if we knew how it was going to turn out, we would have probably gritted our teeth and got on with it. But the day that Boris Johnson tells nobody to go to the pub, he actually comes on television and tells nobody, "Do not go to the pub," he said, and no one did. And that's it. There was no kind of support mechanism or suggestion of how the industry was supposed to deal with that. That was a very memorable moment in our careers in the hospitality industry, and something that we'll never forget. But we made it out, and what we see now, and I'm sure Gina will talk about this as well, are the kind of ripple effects that have come out of the pandemic. We're all aware of supply chain issues. We've seen it with petrol, and that's sort of an indirect impact. But supply chain issues with regard to having the food that you want, to be able to run a decent menu. I've been into restaurants not that long ago, and I've walked in, and they said, "Just before you sit down, please be aware that we don't have half the things on our menu." And you kind of say, "Okay, I understand that," but it doesn't make for a good hospitality experience. Not the sort of experience that we want to be giving our guests when you can only give them half the things that are on your menu. But probably the most significant problem that we're facing and still facing is the lack of chefs. There is a real crisis in the chef recruitment business. I don't know if it's the same in other parts of Europe. But certainly in the UK, there are just not enough chefs to go around, and there are all sorts of reasons for that. The role of a chef is a hard one. They're not always the best paid people. People don't want to work in those kind of conditions necessarily, and so the industry is really reeling from that, a recruitment problem, and we see our local competitors actually closing down for weeks on end in order to be able to give their current chef brigade time off, because they don't have enough chefs to keep going. There's a pub down the road from me who's just announced on Facebook today that they'll be closing for 2 weeks in November. I mean, you can't. That's incredibly challenging to be able, to run a business and have to close for 2 weeks. And we know November's not necessarily the busiest time of year, but you still have your fixed costs. You still have your mortgage or your rent to pay, and your council tax, your business rates, and all these things to pay. So having to actually close your business because you don't have enough staff to go around is a significant challenge, and I'm sure we'll see other challenges going forward. What is the next thing that's going to happen? Oh, that's right, a few weeks ago there weren't going to be enough turkeys for Christmas. That was going to be something we were going to have to deal with, but which is ironic in Norfolk, because Norfolk is the home of the turkey. So to not be able to have turkey on your menu at Christmas was just sort of unbelievable. So there are all these problems with supply chain, labour market, and just a customer reticence. There's still, trade is not where it should be. It's not at 100%. There are still people who are very reticent about coming into a pub or a coaching inn or a hotel. To a degree, because they're not sure what to expect when they get there. You see some people walk in. We don't wear masks, rightly or wrongly. That's a polarized argument in itself. Do we wear masks? Don't we wear masks? We take we have a risk assessment, we take precautions, but we've not insisted that everyone wears masks. But people walk in thinking they ought to. Some people walk in, see that we don't, and don't come back. And there's still real mountains to climb. I'm rabbiting on. I'm aware of time. Please tell me when you want me to stop. So there are things that we still need to overcome. I think in terms of where we're going, then there's been a real need to refocus on our business model. Again, business model is this kind of academic term that I talk about in strategic management. And what is a business model? Well, a business model is the kind of the recipe for how you deliver value to your customers. And as a result of everything that's gone on over the last 18 months, customers' behaviours have changed, what customers want has changed, and the businesses that will succeed, that will come out of the ongoing issues, are the ones that are able to be flexible with their business models. We've seen several examples of high street chains, what we might call managed houses, where there is a kind of there's a business model with hundreds of outlets. They've been the hospitality outlets that have struggled the most because they can't flex their business model. It's ingrained within those 100 outlets or those 500 outlets, and that's what they do. And they pay managers to do what it is they want them to do. Whereas the kind of local independent outlets like us have been able to change very quickly and respond to these differing trends in terms of what customers are looking for. There's a move towards what we might call premiumization, which is not a very nice word, but people looking for premium products. So wanting more of an experience, so in terms of, let's say, the range of lagers that you might have on your bar, people want the high-end lagers. They want to spend more money on better quality products, and that's something we've really seen. Along with that, people are increasingly wanting local produce. So, the menu needs to reflect local produce. Our beef comes from just down the road. Our bread comes from just down the road. And this is what people are looking for. And again, the managed houses, the ones that have the national chains, they can't do that because their supplies are centralized, and they're really struggling as a result of that. So flexibility, going up market, being able to respond to changing needs very, very quickly has and will see us through, and I think there will be a survival of the fittest. We've already seen, again, businesses go out of business because of all the kind of things that we've talked about. So it's a rapidly changing picture. I'm talking very generally here about food, beverage and accommodation provision, but a rapidly changing picture. I don't quite know where it's going to end up, but you just need to be very much on your toes and willing to do different things. So, another thing we've done is that because we also have struggled with chefs, we have a core brigade of chefs, but we don't have enough. So on a Wednesday night, we don't do food in our food-led pub in Norwich. We get street food providers to come in, park up their vans on our car park, and provide our customers with their own street food. They come and eat it in the pub, and hopefully they'll buy a drink. But it's just an example of how we've changed our business model in order to be able to respond to all these factors. How am I doing for time? How much time have I got left, roughly? 5 minutes, maybe less.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Oh, no time.
Yeah. So yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah. So in this occasion, thank you so much, Grahame, for sharing all of your experience, and then also it's a pleasure for us to have you on board of this event. And then definitely, for sure that we're gonna have questions for at the end.
Sure.
So just to remind to the rest of the attendees that if they have any question, so at the end of this event, we're gonna have 10-minute question and answer, where both of our speakers, they're gonna answer any of those questions. In the second part now, we're gonna have Gina. Gina is one of my friends from Spain. Gina Piek is an event organizer and hotel administrator of Hotel Fuenteleguera in Andalusia, Spain. Gina studied University of Malaga and graduated with a degree of child psychology. She comes with a great amount of experience in the hospitality sector, both in Spain and around the world. In this case, she is working with her family. Also, she is one of the managers of Hotel Fuenteleguera. So Gina, thank you for being in this event and welcome on board.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. Very much agree with a load of things that Grahame said. Well, I will start to presenting myself. As Andy said, well, we're friends, and he worked with us in Hotel La Fuenteleguera. It's a small family business in South Spain. It's a 4-star boutique hotel near Ronda, a little beautiful town. It's 11-room hotel, and yeah, my parents started 22 years ago. My father is Dutch and my mother is German, but my brother and me were born here in Spain. I studied in Malaga. I studied child psychology, and afterwards I have been working around in Spain and other places, and Holland, and in different restaurants, and quite a lot in the hospitality industry. In my family, I always say I quite grew up in the hospitality world, because it's like I grew up in a hotel. So that was like since I was a child, I knew how I had to behave in front of guests, always say hello, have a kind face, don't run, because that would make them feel rushed. And those things have always been in like a standard in our family. The hotel, as I said, is a small 11-room hotel. We have guests that have been coming back for the last 18, 15, 12 years. It's been like, we have guests that have quite seen me grow up as a person. That they always have insisted in the hospitality. They feel we always try people to really feel at home. It makes it easier being a family, because we're all there, me, my brother, my parents. My parents are starting to retire at the moment, but still not at the point. So before the pandemic, totally agree with Grahame that the hospitality sector has like suffered so much. It's like just not being able to see a face because of the mask, and it just takes away so much. Hospitality is all about feelings and faces, and making people feel warm at the place, and it's very difficult maintaining social distance with masks on, and feeling other people as a threat to yourself or to other people. So starting with that, but also the hotel had to close here in Spain. We had to close for there was a state of alarm, and all the hotels and businesses had to close. That's, of course, no one was prepared for that. It was also a moment, because March is when you're starting the season. So the reservations were like, generally we are more or less booked in by March, April. We start having all our summer bookings that were, of course, a part of not knowing any moment what would be happening, because it was not something you would know how long it would last, or how deep it would go, or it was like not knowing has been, I think, one of the worst parts, because you could never really prepare for anything, because it would change any moment. So we received some government helps, not really much, I suppose, but suppose that was the same case for everyone. Or more as well, it's been about like the debts, well, the payments you have to do have been less. So those have been all stopped, and there have been a lot of financial support, not really help, but yeah, more difficult, but at the same time, it gave it a huge value to feel hospitality somewhere, or to like help someone in a difficult. It's like in a hotel in Spain. We're general, everyone was stuck somewhere. That's our heritage, and that has also made people more human in some aspect. I know if that makes sense, but many times we had to open and close in many moments, and there were different times where local local tourism was allowed, but suddenly maybe your area would shut down, so people once again were stuck somewhere and couldn't or go back home or couldn't go to where they were heading. And of course, many international travels, people all over the place. We have all seen how the travels just stopped from one day to the other, and like people were really stuck in places. So that was a very difficult moment where it actually made people as well like realize the value that these type of things have, and people that would call someone and would just be as a friend more than a hotel manager or something. Also, we have noticed the difference really impressively of the change of habits or the change of interest of the people, as Grahame was saying too, because we have a hotel, Hotel La Fuente La Higuera, and we have a guest house called the Lodge Ronda. They are 15 kilometers distance one from the other. And the hotel is it's for guests and like a normal hotel, and the lodge is a guest house where people come together in families or in friend groups, and where we used to do all the events, the weddings, the business meetings, and all these events we also used to organize. The amount of interest in the lodge has increased incredibly in damage of the hotel. So usually the hotel was always full with some gaps and holes, and now it's quite the other way around. The lodge, it has much more petitions, and it's nearly fully booked. Meanwhile, the hotel has the type of guest is very different of what it was 2 years ago. So yeah, in that aspect, we have totally noticed that families and people want to travel in small groups or like trust, like people feel secure, and that if something happens, I also think it's not that much the COVID fear anymore, but sorry, I think suddenly we as society we saw that something for what we were not prepared or we were totally not expecting happened. So that thought that okay, even so totally, once again, agree with Grahame. It's totally not over. It's here, and we live it on a daily basis. Guests are still not traveling as they used to be. This last weekend was a national festivity here in Spain, and it's been the first weekend since before COVID that there have been like quite normal ratings for what tourism would be in comparison to years before COVID-19. So yeah, we're recovering bit by bit, trying to also get through all the different requirements here in Spain. We had to have many security protocols and cleaning protocols. We had to change many different things, and well, of course, it has affected to the staff. It's been very difficult as we have people that have been working with us for 20 years, nearly as much as there are some of the people that are still working have been actually since day one, so they have also seen me grow up, me and my brother, and yeah, it's as you can think, it's totally, it's not only staff, it's not only people that work there, it's people you have been sharing your life for long time, and also the newer people. Some people have been maybe for 3 years, 4 years, but also they are people that we know. It's people from here, from the surroundings. So seeing so many people, we had a actually quite big like staff team for a quite small hotel. We before the pandemic, we had like 20. We also have like gardeners and night guards and everything, but we had like 20 something people depending on high season or low season, and now we're working with like 11 people, so it's like decreased to like half of what it was. And once again, it's like the whole family, we have been there the whole time. Like we didn't really know if we were working or just spending the day, because we were open many times, but there were literally no guests, like no one. But you didn't know, because some places could open, and there would be always people on the road that were stuck somewhere, that really needed somewhere to go when all other places were closed. So we kept open every time we could. Meanwhile, there was totally no income. So that has been also very difficult, and more on, I think we have been also able to do it because that's, we have done it together, and we just went to live into the hotel as we did when it all started, actually. So we just got back to the origin, and it's been until actually last August. Now it's quite like a low season, but still a little bit of security. At the moment, we also like the future looks a little bit brighter. So in that aspect, you try to make some plans and start organizing. However, once again, you have that fear of, well, what, like, you never know. It's a very difficult and strange situation. Sorry, I don't know what time I started talking, so I really don't have knowledge of time. And
You're okay.
Is there any, I don't know, is there anything, any other thing I should talk about?
Yeah, also, as long as you was talking about how the government help a small business in Spain, because here in England, so we got like a help from the government as well, but how much help did you get from the government?
Well, there hasn't been much government help. There has been, as I said before, more support. There has been like more, not for the business itself, but for like my parents that are freelance, like the owners of the business, they have received some economical support, and the support I mean is with like the banks. They I don't really know how that's all explained in English. Sorry, my English level gets to there, but it's like there were some like credits that have been like improved by the government, so the banks would allow like give credits with very low interest and like basics, so it would be like like an easy money to pay back. So you do have to pay back. A part of that we have requested 2 or 3 different helps, some government helps like from the state, some community like Andalusian community, and some like from the province of Malaga. So also you have to like try to be everywhere and find out all the different things you could ask for. But yes, there are still some things we are waiting for. So there hasn't been like a very like a relief, a help that would be a relief. So it hasn't been anything that you could do something with. It was more, I suppose, also the intention, because we were all in the same place. It was to like survive and just be able to just whatever, because there was a moment that everything was possible. I think in every business there was one moment that like from closing to keep going, everything in there was totally possible in so many ways that was really exhausting. So no, there hasn't been like that type of relieving help. But yeah, I suppose in what was what they could do, or what they wanted to do, or where they wanted to put attention on, there has been like initiatives to, or more local ones, or for freelancers, or as I said, like to promote, like to, I don't know how that's explained, but like to promote to banks to allow credits with very low requirements in that aspect. So that has been in with our administration department, we agree that has been like the most relief in that aspect, even though it's not a help, because it's a loaning, so you have to pay it back. But all the payments have been like stopped. The staff, the employees have been so the what you pay to the government for them has been reduced to 50%. So meanwhile, that was also, so there has been more like little things put on gaps than a whole project of ideas. But I suppose that's also, there was no one knew what they were doing, and it just, no one was expecting any of this. So it's been, I think we did what we could with what we had, and everyone has been in that situation. So, and we're still trying, so keep going.
Good. Thank you so much, Gina. I can imagine that it must have been quite a big change for the whole business, and especially more for the small business. Now is the time for everyone to please write your question for both for Grahame and Gina. So now it's time for question. Yes, so we have a question from Zach.
Actually, just pass it over to Chris for a moment. I'm still preparing my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you again, Graham.
And you?
So I have a question for both of you. What do you think the next 6 months are going to look like?
Gina, you go first. Oh, I think Gina must have. Gina has frozen, I think. Shall I go first then?
Yeah, it seems
Good
so.
question.
Yeah.
Gina,
Me?
are you back?
Yeah, I don't know. I hear myself.
Yes. Dina, you go.
Yeah?
Okay, yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know. I could see myself. I'm sorry. Well, I would say our best 6 months have we just left behind because it's been summer, so our low season starts. Christmas is usually a little hill in that low season. However, we don't expect a very festivity, a very low festivity this year. Our season, as it's low season, we're going to start to do more maintenance things and like prepare next season. So we start March and we are hoping to be able to prepare a next spring summer season.
Yeah, I'd agree, Gina. I think the next 6 months are notoriously the toughest for hospitality, bar Christmas, of course. If everything else stays the same, then I think we are hopeful that Christmas will be good, because nobody really got a Christmas last year or a New Year, and they'll hopefully make up for it this year. I think if things change, if we now see numbers start to rise, and the media, who I think have got a lot to answer for in terms of how the pandemic has panned out, the media are very good at hyping the situation, and if they start to put up some very negative headlines, then I think we're in for another tough season. But I think if people are left to their own devices, then people will want to come out and celebrate and make up for lost time. Let's hope so, anyway.
Thank you. Zach?
Yeah, I've got a question for you both, but I just wanted to ask Gina, from your personal view, you said that you basically grew up, and which you basically grew up in the hospitality industry. And so I was just wondering if you could give a little bit of insight into what the experience has been for you, personally, because I think, much of the general population, we know that large businesses have been affected and small and medium enterprises have been affected massively as well. But from a really personal viewpoint, obviously you were with your family, luckily, which I'm sure you're grateful for, or maybe not. I don't know how well you get on with your brother. That's good. That's good. So yeah, how was that experience for you? Having grown up in that industry, in that sector.
Well, it's, as everything has two sides. So it's at the end, I see it from now on the perspective. I love it a lot, and I'm able to see it from a very beautiful perspective. And my brother too. So I know, and sometimes it's not, you don't see it from that perspective, and being in there the whole time can also be very exhausting. So sometimes you really need to get out and be able to see it from the outside, because we are actually really lucky of how the way we grew up, and also the way I remember just being there the whole time and being part of the business. At the moment, I feel, and well, Andy can say, it's not a very business feeling. We have a big family we really like and love and care about the people that live, like work there, are there, and guests that come there. And that's something that my parents have like always given me since day one. So that was something we had very clear. I even tell the guests, like my brother and me could be fighting, like pulling our hairs out, and suddenly the door opens to the kitchen and we would both stand like smiling and just looking friendly as nothing would be happening, because that was, the guests would not need to know. And well, guests have, some of them have seen us fight too, but that was children things. Now it's really nice to be able to like be with the family at this time, because it's also it's both sides at the same time, because you worry if it goes bad for all of us. But you do, as we're all together, you do have the feeling of like being able to control what is going to happen to the people around you, or at least try your best to be able to get the best out of it. So it's, yeah, growing up and at the moment seeing all this happen, it's a bit of both sides. Growing up, you sometimes hate to always have to be like kind and smiling and have to say hello, and also let people never like go in a door first is something that I would never do. Like even I have never done. I would never go first into. It's just something that I grew into. And at the moment, I also, well, a long time ago already, but I see how lovely that is and how people really appreciate that, like the face someone, and nowadays even more, because sometimes people don't even look, they're on the telephone and they're not even looking. So when you give them that little touch of hospitality, they get like they suddenly get back to on earth, like at the present, at the moment. Or here in Spain, they like saying thank you and bye and have a lovely day when you leave a place is not that usual. And that's something I cannot not do. So I just always, and they suddenly, it's a shock. It's like a little, oh, you too, thank you. And that little clinch of it always shocks people in a nice way. So it's part of me. I think that's the answer, like hospitality in a good and in a bad way. It's part of me.
Thank you. So we got another question from Racheli.
Hi, everyone. So I think that this question you can answer, both of you. So I would like, because since you have experienced this situation about the pandemic, etc. So what would you do if something similar like this situation happen again in the future? I mean, would you act in the same way or change something to help your business and yourself?
I think if it happened again, we would just cry and hide away, go and hide for 6 months and just live in a bunker or something. I don't know. I would never want to experience it again, and I don't think we will. It doesn't really answer your question directly, but what I would hope is that the governments would be better prepared next time. That's really where it went wrong, I think, is that the government themselves didn't have a plan as to how they were going to deal with it. And they were very reactive. And, Gina said, and I said earlier, that I think if we'd known now, it sounds to me like, Gina, that the British government, the UK government, have probably been a little bit more generous, perhaps, than the Spanish government, because we have had quite a lot of support. The furlough being the most significant support, where the British government paid our employees' wages. Who'd have thought? Who knew that the British government would pay you employees' wages for 18 months? We've had some really quite good grants which don't need to be paid back. We've also had loans at very low interest rates which do get paid back, but as I said, at an interest rate that a bank would never entertain. We've had huge reduction in VAT. So if it happened again, I would hope that the government would be much more proactive, that we could be confident on relying on those support mechanisms, and we would get through it, because we learn, don't we? We survive. That's what business people do, and you find a way. But my hope is that it wouldn't happen again the way it happened this time.
Well, I agree with what Grahame says. I also think it's like, as I said before, even if we are not conscious about it, but we're all much more prepared for something in general. Like we were not prepared for this because we just didn't think this could happen like this. So now it happened, and in general, like our lives, now you take decisions on another way. So it has affected us, and in certain way, like I totally hope that it won't happen again, and not to this level, but we will maybe have some things similar, or who knows, or we're at least in our head that is something that is not that far away anymore, as just a science fiction film where like all those things were just somewhere else that was not reality. So I think it got closer to reality.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Finally, we have a question. This question is for Grahame. What advice do you have for future entrepreneurs that might want to open their own little inn? How much has really changed in the hospitality business?
Ooh, how long have you got? Advice for entrepreneurs that want to start their own hospitality business. That's a really good one. I think it's something that we would hope that all business students grasp by the end of their studies, if not early on, in that the customer is the most important thing in your business, and you tailor your products, your business plan, everything you do to the customer. And sometimes that's hard, and Gina talked about the passion of people in hospitality, and that's absolutely right, but sometimes customers are hard work, and the customer is always right even when they're not. And I think it's just about really understanding your customer and appreciating that customers' behaviors, needs change all the time, and they have increasingly high expectations. And as long as you're prepared for that and have the resources to be able to meet those needs, then you will be successful, because that's what makes a business. You're providing customers with what they want. And so many businesses or business people starting businesses don't do that. As I said, I hope business studies students, and I'm talking about event management, tourism management, hospitality management, within the sort of generic title of business studies students, because there's a huge amount of business studies in all of our courses, and I think that's a good thing. I know that some students are put off by that, but actually I think it's a really important thing. That although business studies students understand the importance of customer focus, some people who want to start their own business don't understand that, and are kind of taken in by the attraction of working for yourself and running your own business, and get carried away with that rather than the reason why the business exists in the first place. Self-employment is not better than working for someone else. I used to think it might be, but when I became self-employed, I realized it wasn't. It's just different. You know, you don't have a boss, but then there are other stresses and strains that are equally difficult. So it's a lot of hard work. It's certainly not an easy route. I think the passion has to be for the customer rather than you really want to have your own business without really thinking of the challenges that exist with that.
Thank you so much, Graham, for that. Thank you both for being part of this event. Just to remind you that next week we're gonna be again on Wednesday at 5 p.m. and then we're gonna be covering more topic related with the tourism, hospitality, and event. But next week, remember that we're gonna have Professor Nandan and another professional that will be covering the event area. Thank you so much. Thank you all for being involved, and thank you for watching. Have a good rest of the day.
Nice to meet you, Gina.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye.